Join us in Miami for Code Remix Summit. Attend hands-on sessions with some of the best industry experts. Looking for immediate ROI by attending? Bring a relevant business case and work directly on solutions affecting your organization in the hack track. Bring your problem, bring your laptop, and walk away with work done for your boss. Register today for Code Remix Summit.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Code Remix Weekly. With you here is your regular host. With me is Sam Snyder.
Pleasure to be here, Tim. Glad to see you. You're having another ski or snowboarding trip coming up soon, right? Is that next week or the week thereafter?
That's starting Sunday.
Starting Sunday.
Yeah.
Nice. Do you have any snowboarding tips for our viewers out there? You know, that's what people really come to the stream for, I think, is advanced snowboarding knowledge.
I think the best tip is to actually learn to snowboard, like get some lessons, get that under your belt, because I know I've hurt myself very much deferring those lessons. The moment that you have those, very good.
So you tried to just teach yourself to snowboard for a while?
So the first days or so that you think, I'll figure it out, and then
I'll
you
figure
hurt
it out
yourself so much.
Did you get a bad injury?
Well, you start investing into the wrong things, like padded pants and all those kinds of things that are just very uncomfortable. But a couple of lessons would have gone a bit further.
There's probably a lesson in there. I've definitely found in a whole variety of skills throughout my life that without a teacher or without someone to provide some formal instruction, or even just watch what you're doing and point out mistakes that are easier to see from a third person perspective, that even practicing a lot, you could just be reinforcing bad habits, right? You could just be repeating the same mistake and ingraining it if you don't have someone to point out what to do better, which is how I'm going to pivot this into a sales pitch for the Code Remix Summit, where you could bring your recipe and have Tim and I review it and help you to correct any mistakes you might be making based on our vast experience of both creating and subsequently fixing bugs in Open Rewrite and recipe code.
Absolutely, because just having effort spent into something doesn't equate that you have gotten better. You might have just learned some patterns that we have some opinions on.
You might have doubled down on being bad.
I've seen it in the past with very well-intentioned efforts where folks wrote a lot of recipes and then aimed to contribute, and then just from the first one you figured, well, method matcher would be nice to use, for instance, and let's try to do more of that.
Is this utility or that abstraction could save you a lot of time, trouble, and toil.
Absolutely, and as much as the tools make things easier to understand, it does help to spar with an expert who knows what they're doing, and then
absolutely.
Yeah.
So what's new this week, Tim?
So new this week is just a couple of things I want to take you through. One thing that is new. Last week we said that we were very close to Lombok support. This week we can say we're finally there. So there is a release out there. The very latest being 8.45.5, but there was a crucial fix in 8.45.4 by Knut to now actually make that all work on no matter where you're running. If that's the Maven plugin, Gradle plugin, CLI, platform, all of them support Lombok, and now finally ready to go. So
before that release, we were in that wonderful state where it works in your tests, but not in real life, which is just the most awkward position to be in. So now, if you have any Lombok code, be sure you're using a version of Open Rewrite that has 8.45.4 or newer, or you might have passing tests and not passing code changes.
Yeah, so that's and we've also had to make some adjustments downstream now that it's finally working and enabled by default, just because now things work, which is just very pleased to see that. And the neat thing now, of course, is to see it in practice, see those recipes, like we said, those are geared towards maybe logging best practices, now just simply picking up additional changes. So it's good to circle back and apply the recipes that you maybe already did, or maybe you're enforcing them on your pull requests, and now it'll start to suggest more fixes than you saw previously. So, pretty good. So that's one thing that's new. Not quite new, but we do have the complete schedule filled out for the Code Remix weekly Code Remix Summit coming up in May. So if you want to be there, you can use the Modern 3 VIP code that is scrolling through the screen in the bottom. And then you can see all these speakers. We will also be there. We will be doing a, I think, continuous hackathon to help you onboard on your own recipe and authoring journey. And then, hope to see you all there. So
Tim, do you have for the Code Remix Summit? Do you have a talk as well, or are you focusing just on the supporting the hack track?
As far as I know, I'm doing the hack track. I've not looked that far ahead. I'm typically one to look like one event ahead. So my next event is going to be DevNexus, where I'm doing a workshop on a Tuesday. I'll be flying in past midnight on Monday, and then doing a workshop in the morning. And that's as far ahead as I've been looking. And after that is Javaland, and after that is Code Remix.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. When you have an event schedule as packed as yours, you just kind of keep it rolling onto the next thing. And I was thinking I'm also not sure if I'm going to be doing a stand-up talk or just supporting the hack track. But if I did do a stand-up talk, I was thinking that I might do a collection, listicle style of top 10 recipe authoring tricks. Number 6 will shock you. Kind of thing, but who knows? Maybe that'll end up being a Code Remix weekly stream at some point in the near future. I feel like it's been a little while since we just did a digest of recipe authoring tips, so it might be time. I think we probably have a couple new tips, including, of course, how to use type tables, which we'll discuss more in a minute.
It is, and it's always fun to see some patterns you only stumble across maybe in a review, or you land on it and then you think, well, we should do this more often. It's quite neat to have a small nested visitor extraction element, or do things in it.
Yes.
So yeah. So all of that is coming up in May. If you want to join us there, then I very much hope to see you there. A bit closer to home is the Confu conference in Montreal in Canada in, I think, 2 weeks, on the 28th, if I'm correct, where Justine is going to do 2 sessions, one on efficient code searching for large code bases, and the other one on transforming code, AI-assisted refactoring.
Regular Code Remix stream viewers will, of course, be familiar with Justine being an excellent and engaging speaker with a deep knowledge of AI and machine learning subjects, so it's always delightful to go to an event or talk that she's hosting.
Absolutely, and you'll see the very latest. Her focus is on research, and very much, we of course are privileged to see regular demos of the things she's working on, and it's just always you get blown away with everything. You think, oh, didn't expect that. Very neat to see. So be sure to check that out. Then in Toronto, so also on the Canadian side of the border, there's going to be a meetup by the end of the month where Jonathan will present. And he will present on the state of AI in large-scale automated refactoring. So a slightly different view on things you could achieve with OpenRewrite and Modern. But if you're in the neighborhood, then definitely check that out as well. And then just beyond that, there's that workshop that we were talking about. So we're gonna present on Tuesday morning. Hope to see you at DevNexus to go over just migration engineering with OpenRewrite, and how to approach geom problems that you might have for, I think, a full day workshop.
Nice. Man, how have I not used Recipe for Success more often? It's just been staring me in the face the whole time we've been a company, and I'm really, I put together a dozen, PowerPoints and presentations and documents, and it's like, now that I see Recipe for Success, I'm just like, how have I not had that in every single one?
I think I was the first one to use it on a JFall presentation end of last year. It's just one of those tongue-in-cheek things where you know your friends are going to be reviewing your abstract title, and you think, this will give away what they're going to kind of expect. So yeah, you got to have a bit of fun.
You got to have a bit of fun.
And also there is Justine. So if you want to have an updated view on AI's big leap, then definitely come to DevNexus. There's I think a promo code we could share for DevNexus as well, which I'll throw in the chat here, which is this one. And I'll hide the other ticket that's scrolling around. So if you want to get your tickets to DevNexus, then we hope to see you early next month in Atlanta. So that is, I think, it in terms of direct updates that I have for this past week. And with that, we can now move on to the main topic for this week, which is going to be a closer look at type tables. So, Sam, we discussed a bit. You haven't looked at this too much. I think I've typed in some reviews, but
I've reviewed the reviews at a high level. I'm familiar with what type tables accomplishes and how they can let you break up with Classpath drama, as we delightfully titled this stream, thanks to thanks to Jasmine's good title suggestion. The gist of it is that, or the impetus for the type table feature was a deeply ironic problem. Like it felt like someone was writing a Greek tragedy about hubris and the futility of human endeavors in face of the whims of the very gods. They would probably come up with something much more engaging than type tables, but kind of in that same vein is that we have created all of these recipe modules to try and automate the tedium out of software development. And one very tedious part of software development is having security scanners warn you about the dependencies in your software supply chain and the various vulnerabilities that they might be exposing you to. And so, to try and help the whole industry with this problem, we have recipes to update you to the latest version of Spring Boot or other popular frameworks. And as an implementation detail of those recipe modules, we have, in order to support their usage of Java template and other mechanisms that generate new LST elements to replace deprecated methods and do all of the various updates involved in getting you to the newer version, we have bundled into those recipe jars old versions of some of the very dependencies they update, which security scanners have picked up on and have flagged, false positive, I would argue, but flagged nonetheless, the very jars that are supposed to help you fix the problem as having the problem, right? It's like, it's like if a fire alarm warned you that for bringing a sprinkler into your house, it's like no, that's the firefighting equipment, but the security scanner's not entirely wrong. The jar is technically still bundled in there until now.
Absolutely. It's been a source of frustration for us to have to explain to folks that yes, there might be an old version in there, but it's for a good cause and it's not active at all. So much so that we even added an entry to our frequently asked questions to explain all of this, but we'd much rather not explain anything at all. We just wanted to get rid of this. And finally, we found a way to do so. And the way that we did this is that we landed on something that we've come to call type tables. So these leverage something very similar to what we had previously with those nested recipe jars. But now, instead of pulling the full jar into the recipe module, we're going to be pulling in just enough to synthesize the classes that are in that jar for what we need. I'll try to see if I can pull up the exact docs that we plan to write on this feature, because it is very new. But that is this particular tab. So there's a documentation pending for this feature, where it says that where we have this page of the docs that, let's go for the preview and share this tab instead, and then say, we have this page on explaining how you can use multiple versions of a library in a project as we need for projects like Spring. And then how you can copy those jars into that class path from resources to be able to use things in this way. This API hasn't changed one bit, so you can still use the exact same API to use this either in your tests or in your recipes to be able to get that type of information available to the Java template that we use or to the Java parser that we use to compile the snippets that go into your tests. But the way that we make that Classpath available to you, that is going to thoroughly change by now focusing on using something that of a new Gradle task that we added recently. So
I love that this new feature doesn't require any code changes to the recipes themselves to adopt. It's so nice. Even though we have a framework that could help you migrate an old method to a new method, not even having to is just chef's kiss, little bow on top.
it is very nice, and it also goes to show that just choosing the right type of API and not exposing too much just goes a long way to be able to swap things out. And pleased to have gotten that part right early on. So then to show you a bit of its implementation, let's see, take a look at one which was a bit of a source of frustration for me in working through this feature in the past Friday and a bit of part of Saturday, where we were trying to adopt this in the let's go for the most challenging one first, Rewrite Spring, which has a lot of different versions of Spring on the Classpath. All of them need to coexist, and all of them need to be made available at the right moment to synthesize a small snippet of Java with just the classes it needs to compile. And this is what we've done it on. There's a PR, or you can look this up if you want to go to our GitHub, and then I'll share the link in the chat as well. And ideally, it is very easy to apply this. So you take your project, you run the Gradle task to curate type tables. That's the full name of the task. And then you trash all the .jar files in your project, and then you're off and running. That's how it should have worked. And that's how it has worked on 9 out of 10 projects that we have in Open Rewrite. But of course, there's always the one exception, which is if you try to pull in a lot of different things, then it becomes a bit more of a challenge. So you can see my gradual devolving into like just madness, trying to get things to work, discovering different edge cases that we hadn't covered yet. And then there's a fun edge case over here where it's concerning meta annotations. And then I think a couple of days later, there's not seeing any failures locally, but I am seeing failures in the CI. There's another one with endless fun to be had, now looking at unstable ordering when you have not just one recipe jar on the Classpath providing you with a type tables TSV file, but multiple, because by this point we already had Hibernate in there and testing frameworks and Java and a couple of others. And then you learn things about class loaders, you learn things about the ordering of get resources and that it's unstable, and it's fun to look into.
At this point, and just kind of as an almost general coding practice, working with a variety of processes that are meant to be idempotent, same inputs produce the same output, and repeatable, something if it's idempotent and the inputs and outputs are stable, then it's something cacheable, and you might want to involve sets and the like to check. I found myself using a lot more of like linked set or linked hash set to use these ordered collections, just so that even in like a test case for a recipe, all the elements, even if they're allowed to be ordered arbitrarily, are always going to come out in the same order. So this PR and the Sisyphean journey you've had to get the boulder up to the top of the Rewrite Spring mountain is very interesting. I kind of want to back up and look maybe at the implementation of type tables. We're using this term type table, and we've described the functionality, how you can use it to replace a bundled jar for use in type attribution as a recipe implementation detail, what is a type table? You've mentioned a Gradle task generates them, but like, what
Yeah,
is a
sure.
type table, Tim? What's one look like? If such a
So,
question isn't nonsense.
not sure. So I'll pull up a different screen. And let me just prep that real quick.
Yeah, of
So
course.
what we have here in my IDE, and I'm gonna switch screens to show you that one, is this, and I'll zoom in a bit. This is our type table class that we have in the Open Rewrite repository, where you can see that this is the interface that we are using from that Gradle task to be able to both read and write type tables to a local file that we add to recipe modules. So this one was developed a couple of weeks ago, and just leveraging this in the build plugin and then using it in the recipe modules, that took a bit longer to do. And then of course you discover new things. You discover that we had some validation that was switched off by default if it was set to be on. It's silly, fun things to discover. But this is really your API to be able to take HR and extract the elements of it that are part of the public API. So that could be methods, that can be fields, anything that is exposed to you as a developer to use from that jar. And then synthesize just enough of a type table. It's a TSV, a tab separated values file that we create to contain all those references with a link back to the particular version of a library that provided them.
So as a tab separated value file, that sounds like it might be human readable. Could we look at one of these files and make sense of any of the contents, or is it more binary encoded than that?
So it is tab separated values, but it is also zipped. So in the actual project, you will see a zip file that doesn't contain any of the instructions of how to read that for your operating system. So I can't pull it up legibly as easily on my machine.
I see.
But it is very trivial the way that it is structured. And I can show you that a bit if we go to the implementation here. And here you can see exactly the tabs that are being separated. So we'll have the group ID in there, the artifact ID, the version, and all of that. Further to the right is just more and more details about exactly the signature of the elements that we are serializing. So the neat thing here is that we only have to serialize things that are not private. So if they are protected public, but we do need to be mindful of whatever access modifier they have. Are they abstract? Are they protected? And all of that, to be able to then faithfully reproduce those classes when it comes to make them available to the Java parser to type attribute a snippet of code that you want to compile to insert a new element into the lossless semantic tree. So
this feels analogous to like dehydrating milk to get a powder and then rehydrating it back into milk after the fact, whereas what we're discarding here is not all of the moisture but all of the implementation. It's leaving only the method signatures, class signatures, type parameters, and such, since the ultimate purpose of this is not to create executable code, but to be able to type attribute methods or classes that call or inherit from these types. So not only will this be invisible to a security scanner because it isn't actually a class, but even it couldn't possibly be rehydrated into something that is actually executable, as we've thrown away all of the implementation.
Absolutely. So it's a great way to really reduce the footprint of what's in there. So even if we might have the signature of a method that was previously determined vulnerable, that's all we have. There's nothing of code that could be executed in there. So it's just a great way to reduce that footprint and also any lingering vulnerabilities that could have been in there otherwise.
Now this is making me think about how, other applications for this information. Obviously, we designed this for the purposes of type attribution, but I could imagine, and this is hypothetical, not something that we have right now. But one thing that people have used open rewrite recipes for, it's a really interesting application of them, is we have this find call graph recipe, which will record method invocations from any of your code to any of your other code. We even had one customer who ran find call graph and dumped the resulting data table into a vector database to make like a searchable index of a bunch of legacy projects that have been dropped on his lap and been told, hey, are you maintain this now? And he's like, I have no idea what this code is. Let me use open rewrite and find call graph and this whole setup to help make it intelligible to me. And I'm thinking that I'm kind of imagining a hypothetical future for type tables where we already have this infrastructure, which I believe is ASM based. Is that the library we use to interpret the bytecode of these guys? We're using Reflection, yeah, using ASM. Like we could have like a separate invocation table that kept track of like what calls what even, and then you could use that to like extend a call graph relationship into your libraries if you cared to do so. I'm not sure if
Mhm.
that would be that useful all of the time, but that this is useful for this application, but there might be cool future applications of this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's of course always the thing where we develop something for one purpose, and then we find that we've chosen the right amount of granularity to be able to reuse it in ways that we hadn't expected yet. So
Yeah.
one-to-one usage that we also see for this is to be able to use it in our compile verification, where we're now able to very easily and cheaply have a lot of public API signatures for different versions of libraries and frameworks available to us, such that when we make code changes, we can also easily verify that things still work when compiled against a different version, or see where there might be changes in going from one version to the next, and alert you when you are using something that is going away when moving between two versions.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, if you had type tables for multiple versions of a library, you could check for breaking changes between those versions, and potentially, I could see another potential application for this of like doing some kind of automatic analysis of like take the type table for library one and library two. Do some kind of diffing operation and be like, well, here's all the methods in version one that are not there in version two, or had a change to the parameters they accept, kind of thing. In the past, Matern customers have done things like use another open source tool called Rev API to do that
Mm-hmm.
kind of analysis, and then build a system for automatic detection of breaking changes in their PRs on top of that. Plus Modern going and running search recipes to find where the implicated APIs were used throughout their code base. Uh, and so, yeah, I see in type tables another possible like jumping off point for something like that built in more natively to open rewrite. But I think I may have digressed a little bit, gone down on a bit of a tangent, Tim, because I think you were about to point out how much space was saved by switching rewrite Spring from bundling in all of these jars to using the type tables. How did that turn out?
Yeah, so what we have ended up doing with Rewrite Spring is that, like we said, we converted all those jars that we had to just the signatures of the public methods and fields in there. And we ended up throwing away 90% of the size of Rewrite Spring. So that it
Not
used to
bad.
be 39 megabytes, and now it's under 5. So that's a pretty decent improvement. And that, of
Yeah, yeah.
course, yeah, with every release, we'll now have a lot less to ship. We'll have make it easier on folks with maybe an internal artifactory that is not quite of the performant nature that you would hope to get from your artifactory.
We
It
have
just
run
makes
into
things
some
more easier.
remarkably slow artifact repositories out there. If Yeah, I've seen ones where maybe had a bit of an under provisioned or undersized artifact repository, then with several layers of VPN and NAT translation, and leaving one data center to go to another data center, to ultimately come out and be have a whole group of engineers who were like, yeah, we're just used to 5 kilobit per second downloads from our artifact repository. We just kind of live with it. So to all of you out there suffering under those circumstances, I'm sorry, and hopefully this helps in a very small way to make at least some of your recipe jars install faster.
We're continuously amazed with what folks have learned to live with. But of course, yeah, it's manual upgrades is something that folks have learned to live with, and we have to explain to them that it's not something that you have
That a
to
better
live with.
way is possible, yeah.
So then, having seen a bit of what we are synthesizing with those type tables, maybe it's fun to have a very brief look at how we use them from the Gradle plugin to show
That's
you
perfect.
that
I was
task that
just
you're
about
running.
to ask about that.
So I'll share a different view. And here you very much see what, in my case, is my first Gradle task, which I don't think I'd done this before. I'd adjusted previous tasks. But I managed to make things work, even wrote some tests for this one, just because, well, if you're starting out and you don't do things, you want to have some tests to back you up there.
Helps a lot.
And what you see here is that we take the that API that we had, the parser Classpath. Maybe I should have maybe showed you that while we were still looking at Rewrite Spring. I can pull that up again. Let me just show you that one. Just to show that API that hasn't changed, going from that .gradle file that we have here, where we have parser Classpath. Am I looking at the wrong? I'm looking at the wrong Rewrite Spring. So that one, I'll show you that one in a minute.
Yeah, and for even if you build your recipe module with Maven, you may wish to take note of this. We don't have a Maven plugin for building recipe modules, but I'm sure you could with like a maybe like a Groovy exec Maven goal or something along those lines, make a very similar invocation of what this Gradle task is doing in order to produce type tables for your Maven built recipe jar.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have in our Rewrite Recipe Starter project under the Modernic GitHub org, there is already a pom.xml file that does the old style of copying jars to your meta-inf rewrite classes folder.
Which continues to work, right? Like we haven't removed
Absolutely.
that capability.
No. It's just we're now, when present, we also pick up those type tables. So what you can effectively do to gradually adopt type tables is to add a type table to your project and then remove the jars where you find that the type table works just as well. So this is then API that we use for, in this case, from a recipe module, where you add to the root of your build.gradle KTS file a recipe dependencies block, where you say that you want to have on the parser class path all of these dependencies. And scrolling through here, you kind of feel like where that 40 megs of dependencies came from. All of that is jars that were previously copied into this project, but that have now been reduced into a TSV file. And that TSV file, we can see the size of that lands in source, main, resources, meta-inf, rewrite. And then you can see that Classpath TSV file is right here. It's a zip file that I can't quite show you in my IDE, but this one, in terms of, can I show you the properties here? Doesn't want to show you this opening files. And this one is 2.8 megabytes. So instead of the 40 or so megawatts that we had previously, you now get 2.8 megabytes for this Classpath TSV file alone. And then a task that we can run, which is .gradlew type table. This will convert all those parser Classpath entries into that TSV file, which you then can add to your project and upload.
And is that create type table task something that you need to invoke manually to refresh the type table when you make a change to these, or is that invoked automatically by the Gradle plugin on an as needed basis?
For now, it's manual. So you can very deliberately do that. And you can also find that, for instance, here we are not pinning ourselves down to any particular minor or patch version of the major versions of Spring Boot. And that is also a reason to maybe not automatically run this regularly, because you might just be fine with whatever version you had when you first ran this.
Yeah, it's would typically this isn't going to change very much, except when you're manually going and adding a new entry or bumping a version in here. So the running it manually is probably fine.
Yeah. And then you add this to your project, and then you're off to the races.
Although I don't know if you showed at the top which plugin actually. I guess it's the recipe library plugin that is gonna make that available. That that parser Classpath DSL.
I'll share this one briefly. So this is coming in through that recipe library that we're using. So if you use the latest release, you get the release that now includes the type tables to be able to do exactly this.
Yes.
Are you sharing a link, perhaps?
I was considering pulling up the implementation of that again, just to point out how it works, so that if anyone used Maven or Bazel or whatever to build a recipe module, they could see what to copy. So let's see. It was the here we go, recipe dependencies type table task. Yeah. And so you see here that whatever your build system is, you more or less, or just this logic, the first bit, kind of lines 36 through 39 is just going to look inside of that resources folder, or wherever the jars you want to make type tables from are situated. And then it's just iterating over all of those and calling this type table new writer on it with where you want to write it to. So yeah, line 49 through 58 is kind of the meat and potatoes of this implementation. And so if you were using Maven or Bazel or whatever, you could more or less copy those lines and put that in a main method somewhere and run it, kind of regardless of your build system. And I will point out that this implementation, as you can kind of see, is in the upper left-hand corner, is from the Rewrite Build Gradle plugin repository, which is open source under the Open Rewrite organization. So along with all of our other, just the conventions by which we build recipe modules and the language modules, all of the stuff is in there.
Absolutely. And you'll find that the actual API is very minimal. There's the new type table, new writer, and there is their writer.jar to write and entries to it. So that is really all you need, and the rest is just fluff, getting you the jars, getting you the group item effect and the version, and that's pretty much all you need. So even a Maven plugin would be no more lines than you see right here.
Yeah, totally. This is great stuff, Tim. I've always been a fan of these kind of under the hood improvements, where you don't necessarily change anything that's visible from the outside, but the vehicle runs a little bit faster and a little bit cleaner afterwards.
Yeah, it's been neat to see, and especially knowing like all our friends who have reported to us that they would love to get the new recipe jars, but we're so far unable because of those scanners that are overly active, and now finally being able to use all of this.
Yes. Yeah, we've had several customers and would-be customers who it's like every new version of Rewrite Spring that comes out, like I have to ask for a new exception from the security team to allow us to download the thing that's going to let us fix the other security exceptions. So it's trying to make things just work a little bit more.
It's one of those things where you can get that exception the first time around, but of course we do releases every 2 weeks, so you're rapidly burning through your credits with the security team each time for them to click on, could you maybe, they've not changed it yet, could you approve the next version? Yeah.
It's great to be on a first name basis and have an ongoing relationship with your security team and your security champions, but you probably don't want it to be one of that has too much friction involved. This is the kind of thing that could easily breed resentment, of you, the person who's trying to get your dependencies upgraded, being like, I'm so annoyed that I have to ask for this exception all the time, and the security people being like, I'm so annoyed that I have to go and grant this exception all the time. So this is maybe one of those examples of, there's engineers maybe in general have a tendency to try to fix people or procedural problems with technical solutions, and that is very limited. But I think this is a case where we could fix a process problem with a technical solution.
Absolutely. It's been great just to see this come together. I mean, different folks worked at this at different times, hours, and now just have this be available. And now the fun is I've had a customer call earlier this week, and we had 5 minutes to spare, and then we ran it just as easy as it should be. Add the latest plugin, run that task, remove your jars, and you're done. So we've kind of smoothed the path there, such that it should be a drop-in replacement for most of you. So
You'll love to see it. You'll love to see it. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think I can think of anything else on this subject except further wild speculations about how we might expand it and related features in the future. I think I already kind of covered that. Unless, let's. Well, I think we could leave it there. Leave it there for now, unless you have anything else you wanted to talk about or bring up today, Tim.
No, this is very much what I was looking forward to sharing with you all.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and thank you, Tim, for that type table tour.
Absolutely. And then, of course, I won't be here next week, so I look forward to what you will do.
Yeah. Maybe I will. I'll need to pick out a topic soon. Maybe it'll be, top 10 recipe authoring tips, or maybe we'll have on our new chief security officer for an interview. That might be fun. But either way, whatever we end up doing, I'm sure it'll be fun and informative. So look forward to it.
Absolutely. So I'll watch next week, but I hope that you will be watching with me, and then see you all in a couple weeks. Cheers. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks everyone.